Hello YouTube and fellow Star Wars collectors. On this episode of Toys Are the Way, we will be taking a look at the Vintage Collection Deluxe Book of Boba Fett figure. If you're new to the channel or a fan of Star Wars collecting, be sure to drop a like down below, remember to subscribe, and make sure to ring that bell to stay notified. Upcoming videos will feature similar reviews, diorama builds, and more from the Vintage Collection, so stay tuned. Welcome back everyone. In today's video, I wanted to do a quick review and diorama setup using the new Vintage Collection Boba Fett from the Book of Boba Fett. I recently got a pair of these from Amazon and of course had to immediately open it and put it to the test. It was nice to get this figure, but it would have been even better to have gotten it sometime closer to the Book of Boba Fett so that we could enjoy the figure and also be watching the show simultaneously. Regardless, it's finally here and I'm excited to take a closer look at it with you and point out a few things that I've noticed so far that make it different from the previous Vintage Collection release of Boba Fett. But with that being said, let's take a closer look at the package and the figure. So here we have the packaging, a nice image of Boba Fett on the sands of Tatooine, looking pretty good. We've got Jabba's palace off in the distance, a nice Book of Boba Fett logo, Boba Fett Tatooine, and the two suns off in the distance. All in all, a pretty decent card art representation. It's not the most dynamic scene, but it does what it needs to do. It's showing us the figure, the accessories, the rocket firing jetpack, little flames for the jetpack. So it's not too bad. I don't think this is as stunning as a TVC card, you know. The plastic bubble with the figure and just card art is such a timeless look that's hard to top, and I can see they're trying to do something like that here with this deluxe set, but it's really just not the same as that classic Kenner style of just packaging. But all in all, a pretty decent box. My favorite part is definitely the rocket firing decal. This is like, you know, homage to the stickers you would get on packaging, and it looks pretty cool. So, and also rocket firing Boba Fett is extremely classic, so that's definitely my favorite part. If you look at the side, we have a nice image of the figure with the helmet off. Fantastic face sculpt right there. The bottom has a bunch of stuff that no one cares about. And the other side has a nice image of the two stormtrooper helmets. The back is nearly identical to the front, except we have the nice Vintage Collection logo here, and also a nice image of all the accessories and contents within the package. Got your rocket firing jetpack, removable helmet, blaster rifle, pistol, and two stormtrooper helmets. So all in all, pretty decent. And like I said, this is a pretty nice package, but it just will never replace the classic TVC look that we all know and love. Taking a closer look at the figure, man, Hasbro did a fantastic job on this character. You know, I personally loved the Return of the Jedi Boba Fett look. It was such a timeless, you know, look that we just knew Boba Fett as for such a long time. But I'm really starting to like this figure a lot in this character. Yeah, Hasbro did a fantastic job. Looks really good. Soft goods, fantastic. The jetpack looks great. Here you can see the flame accessories that come with it. They're pretty cool. I think they're great for display and maybe like a play feature. They're not really something that I get too excited about. I can always, you know, edit in some flame effects if I need, but you know, if you can't do so, this is always something kind of cool. And I am always a fan of like translucent plastics and how they interact with light, so that is definitely a plus. They are removable, like I said, so they simply snap in, if I can even get that off, there you go, with this little peg. And there's a peg hole in the jetpack allowing you to place them in. Takes this one off as well. And there you have the jetpack without it. Taking a closer look at the helmet, they did a really good job with that as well. I've also become much more partial to the swappable head and helmet, but Hasbro opted to give us the more classic helmet type. This is still a very good helmet. It looks proportional, nothing's too smushed, all in all great. Biggest qualm is that the rangefinder is still not articulated. We have not gotten a Boba Fett with an articulated rangefinder, and that is a bit disappointing. Moving on, the articulation is excellent. We've got the new hips that are very easy to interact with, ball jointed knees, which are fantastic, and rocker ankles, allowing you to put this figure in quite a number of poses. And I will say that, ever since we've been getting these new ball jointed hips, these figures are much more easy to quickly pose. We definitely had to work a little bit to move the hips before, so getting that into the vintage collection now is very good stuff. The rifle is actually a little difficult to engage with, and I've noticed that this rifle is a bit smaller when compared to the Return of the Jedi version. I'm pretty sure, the design is slightly different in the show now, so it is, accurate to what we see on screen. But because of that, I actually think the handle is a little smaller too. So a little bit difficult for the figure to kind of like hold firmly, but he still can do it. So not too bad. It is of the gummy plastic, which isn't favorable, but still pretty cool. And the rifle does have some really nice detail on it. So that does make up for some things. The nice metallic wash looks great. So those are things that, help balance out quality in my opinion. The pistol's pretty good as well. Doesn't really have much of a wash or anything to it. It does fit nice and snug into the holster. And there you go. Fits in the holster. Nice and snug. Won't be falling out. So pretty cool. His arms have great range of motion. We've got soft plastic up here again, which doesn't hinder any movement, so that is also a big plus. Taking a closer look, you can see all the nice paint applications that are on his armor. Looking really good. He's got belt buckle, some paint apps down here on the little shotgun shells or just ammunition. He's got some nice pouches. The gauntlet has paint decals on it as well. He's got his mythosaur. The jetpack has the nice welding patch on the back and some pretty decent paint schemes. All very nice and representative of what we would see in the show. Before we move on, let's take a quick look at the rocket firing jetpack. Here you can see Boba Fett's rocket fly out of his jetpack. Pretty cool. It's got a nice little translucent plastic flame effect, and it fits pretty nice and snug into the jetpack. So that is pretty cool and nice little feature. First time we're getting that in the vintage collection, so definitely a neat accessory to have. I also recently saw online that you can remove this flame effect and swap it with the jetpack one, which is actually pretty cool. So once you remove it, you can simply swap like so, and you have a bigger flame effect, which I personally think looks a bit better. But once you have that flame effect, you can also place it in like so, and it does look now like the rocket is still firing out of the jetpack. And personally, I think that looks a lot better if you're going to have this displayed like so. So that is a pretty cool, nifty little trick. And before we move on to a comparison of these two figures, let's take a quick look at the final accessory, the stormtrooper helmets with battle damage. Definitely a nice little accessory to be getting. I like the slashes and just crack marks on the helmet. I think this is a great little accessory to get. I kind of wish they would have gave us a few more. It is cool that it has a peg so that you can put this on a regular stormtrooper body. So you can definitely set up other scenes that are not, Book of Boba Fett scenes or anything like that with battle damaged stormtroopers. So definitely pretty cool. And moving on, we have two versions of Boba Fett from the vintage collection. We have VC 186 Boba Fett from the Return of the Jedi, which we got this figure about a year or so ago. A fantastic figure which was much needed in the vintage collection. This figure definitely just took the vintage collection to another level. Boba Fett had been needing an upgrade for quite a while, and that figure was quite popular in the collecting community. And now we have this Book of Boba Fett version, which is equally as nice in my opinion. Although there are a few things that are minor differences that I think are interesting things to point out. So at a quick glance, these Boba Fetts look nearly identical, but if you take a bit of a closer look, you may see that the Return of the Jedi Boba Fett has a slightly different and longer rifle than what we see here on the Book of Boba Fett version. I'm pretty sure this is accurate to the show. I will say that this Boba Fett from Return of the Jedi also has a different hand sculpt. So it's just a firmer plastic. I think it grips the rifle better. The rifle is longer and has like a longer stock. Therefore, he's able to hold it in this position a lot easier, in my opinion. So definitely two things that make him, I don't know, just a little bit more functional. His hands being a bit of a harder plastic. I remember when I first got this figure, it was maybe a little too hard, in my opinion, the plastic for his hands. But things we've been getting in the vintage collection recently are definitely of a very gummy nature. The other thing you may notice is the helmets. So, like I said, the Book of Boba Fett version is a removable helmet, whereas Return of the Jedi does not come with a face sculpt. So we got the molded helmet. Now, I prefer this for aesthetics, but also I've come to realize that because it is on a ball joint and sculpted, it has a much better range of motion. Boba Fett can look up a little bit better, you can just tilt his head and just get kind of that body language that is very Boba Fett. So that is something you can't actually, let me get him to stand real quick. You can't achieve as well with the Book of Boba Fett version. As I'll demonstrate, his head kind of moves up a little bit with it's more just the plastic helmet kind of coming off to tilt his head upward. So that's a little bit of a downer. Of course, you can go side to side and you can tilt it a little downward, but that is something that hinders, movement, that helmet, and not being able to interact with the ball joint on the head. So a bit of a negative in my opinion. I think this is another reason why the sculpted helmets and having a swappable head sculpt and helmet is a better move. I'm also almost certain that maybe we would have been able to get the articulated rangefinder. I don't know if that's something they can do with these plastic removable helmets. So something to consider when, voicing your opinions on, how you feel about these figures with Hasbro. So that was one thing that I noticed. The other difference is in the jetpacks. So at first glance, these jetpacks look nearly identical, but when you take a closer look, you can see that the rockets on them are actually different size. I'm not sure if that's accurate to the show or not. I haven't really took the time to pause and just analyze it, but that is one thing that I noticed. I'm not sure if that's, how it's supposed to be, but it is ever so slightly smaller. I kind of like the Return of the Jedi look more. I don't know, something now about this jetpack rocket just looks a little small and I don't know, just looks off to me now. The jetpacks are identical in articulation and stuff. The peg on the back is the same, so you can swap these out and paint them if you really chose to do so. Although you won't have that little welding patch that Boba Fett fixed his jetpack. So that was the only other thing that really stood out to me so far. Taking a bit of a closer look at these figures, you can see that they're nearly identical. The emblems are the same size, so that's a nice consistency and thing I like to see within the vintage collection. The armor is great. I got some nice coloring on here. Return of the Jedi is a bit more beat up. Naturally, he's going to have more scuff marks. So that's good. The Mythosaur skull looks pretty much identical. I think it's placed a little bit lower on the Book of Boba Fett version, but that doesn't bother me. Looks pretty great. This gauntlet right here is ever so slightly different. You can see that the far left rocket or blaster part of it is a bit longer on the Return of the Jedi. It goes further up his hand. I'm not sure if that's accurate to the show. I do like the paint deco on the Book of Boba Fett version. That silver just pops really nice, so that's cool. And like I said, the gloves are also different. You can see they're just different styles. Boba Fett now has the triangle on the top of his glove, similar to the Mandalorian. So that's the other thing that is definitely noticeably different. And I also actually just noticed he doesn't have any lower armor down below on his pants. So that's interesting. I'm not sure. Boba Fett just decided he didn't need that. Obviously the belts and just like overall design of the character is much more different. But those are the main things that I noticed are different in terms of the sculpting and just, accessories, jetpacks, and stuff like that. So these are both fantastic figures and really great representations of Boba Fett in all the different media we have been getting recently. If you had to ask me which one is my favorite between the two, it's still a very tough choice. I really like the Return of the Jedi Boba Fett, but the fact that the new Book of Boba Fett version has the updated ball-jointed hips and just a really good face sculpt of Temuera Morrison, I don't know, it's kind of hard to choose, but I think I'm actually liking the new version a bit more. Even though it's got, gummy plastic and maybe the rocket is a little small and it still doesn't have an articulated rangefinder, but I don't know, there's just something about being able to engage with those hips and just that articulation that really adds to a figure. And lastly, let's take a look at the head sculpt provided. I think this is spot on. It looks just like Temuera Morrison. The paint application is done well. He doesn't have terribly crooked eyes or anything. And yeah, I'm just happy to have, a version of Boba Fett and just this nice face sculpt. It looks great. So they did a fantastic job. I just don't know how this could get any better. The Vintage Collection is just doing a wonderful job recently with the face sculpts. I have got to give them a lot of credit. And if you were curious at all, the Return of the Jedi Boba Fett helmet fits on this new version. So if you were absolutely not happy with the molded plastic version of a helmet, you could easily swap it. Of course, the paint applications are going to be a little different. Boba Fett did clean up his helmet a bit, and the greens will be off, but I know there's some customizers out there who might want to tackle that kind of project. So pretty cool. And this is just also something that makes me wonder, why didn't we just get the swappable head and helmet? Maybe a later release, give us the articulated rangefinder. I'd be really cool with that, Hasbro. I wouldn't mind buying another one of these, because it is a fantastic figure. And there you have it, the Vintage Collection Deluxe Boba Fett from the Book of Boba Fett Tatooine. An amazing figure, no doubt. And now let's set up a scene and diorama and just show how amazing this figure can look when put to the test. I hope you've enjoyed this video and taking a closer look at this deluxe figure from the Vintage Collection. Feel free to leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. And definitely remember to like this video and subscribe if you're new to the channel. It really helps and is greatly appreciated. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you on the next video.